You know, there are some books that just change the game, and Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad, Poor Dad is definitely one of them. It's shifted the financial mindset for millions of people. And look, it's not some step-by-step how-to guide. It's really a powerful story, a parable, designed to completely flip how you think about money, work, and building wealth. So, let's do this. Let's dive right in and pull out the absolute core lessons from this class.
Okay, so the whole book is built around this amazing story of Kiyosaki's two dads. You've got his poor dad, that was his actual father, a super educated guy, a government employee who believed in the classic path. Get a good job, work hard for that paycheck. Then you have his rich dad. This was his best friend's father, a guy who dropped out of school in the 8th grade but ended up becoming one of the richest men in Hawaii. I mean, their philosophies couldn't be more different, right? They were polar opposites. Poor dad was always thinking, how can I make more money? But rich dad, he was focused on something else entirely. How can I make my money work for me? And honestly, that one little shift in thinking, well, it's the key to absolutely everything else in the book.
All right, pillar number 1, escaping the rat race. This is all about understanding the psychological trap that, let's be real, keeps most of us financially stuck our whole lives. And Rich Dad, he didn't teach this with a lecture. Oh no, he taught it through real-world experience.
So get this. When he was just 9 years old, Kiyosaki and his friend Mike go to Rich Dad and say, hey, we want to learn how to get rich. So what does Rich Dad do? He doesn't give him a talk, he gives him a job, dusting canned goods in one of his stores for a measly 10 cents an hour. I mean, can you imagine? After weeks of this mind-numbing work for basically nothing, Robert gets furious. He's ready to quit. And that's exactly what Rich Dad was waiting for. See, he wasn't teaching them about work. He was letting them feel the trap firsthand.
And what's so brilliant here is how Rich Dad breaks down the emotional engine that drives this whole rat race. It all starts with fear, right? The fear of not being able to pay your bills. So that fear makes you go out and work hard. Then you get that paycheck. And what happens next? A totally different emotion kicks in. Desire. You start dreaming about all the cool stuff you can buy. So you spend it all. And then, what happens? The fear comes rushing right back. And this cycle, this loop of fear and desire, is what keeps people sprinting on a hamster wheel for their entire lives.
And there it is. Most people's lives are controlled by fear and greed. That's what he called the rat race. The core problem is that a job isn't a long-term solution for building wealth. It's just a short-term fix for that feeling of fear. So Rich Dad's big lesson was this. You have to stop letting these emotions run your financial life. You gotta learn to play a totally different game.
Okay, pillar 2, build your asset column. So if working for a paycheck is the trap, how in the world do you get out? Well, that's what this is all about. And it all starts with some basic financial literacy and 2 super simple definitions.
Okay, first one, an asset. What is it? Simple. It's something that puts money in your pocket. That's it. It generates income for you whether you show up to work or not. Money in.
And a liability? You guessed it, it's the exact opposite. It's something that takes money out of your pocket. It just continuously costs you money. And this is the fundamental difference. The rich focus their lives on buying assets. The poor and middle class, they spend their money buying liabilities that they think are assets.
Which, of course, brings us to the most controversial idea in the entire book. Following these simple rules, think about it. Is the house you live in really an asset, or is it a liability?
So Kiyosaki's argument is that your primary home is actually a liability. And why is that? Because every single month, money is flowing out of your pocket for the mortgage, for taxes, insurance, repairs, you name it. It's not generating any income for you. Now, the point isn't that you should never buy a house. No. The point is you should first focus on buying income-producing assets and then let those assets pay for your house.
And you know, this idea is so much bigger than just your personal finances. There's this great story about Ray Kroc, the guy who founded McDonald's. He used to go talk to MBA students, and he'd ask them, what business am I in? And they'd all say, the hamburger business. He'd just shake his head and say, nope, my business is real estate. See, he knew the real lasting wealth wasn't coming from selling hamburger franchises. It was in owning the incredibly valuable land underneath every single one of those restaurants.
That Ray Kroc story just nails the next big lesson, which is mind your own business. See, your profession is what you do for your paycheck. Maybe you're a teacher, a doctor, a coder, at your job. But your business, that's your asset column. Kroc's profession was selling burgers, but his business was buying real estate. The problem is, way too many people spend their whole lives minding someone else's business and making them rich instead of building their own.
So what are we talking about here? What kind of things should go in that asset column?
Well, stuff like this. Businesses you own that don't need you there every day. Stocks, bonds, real estate that actually generates income. Royalties from things you create. Basically anything that produces income. The whole goal is to build up a portfolio of these things until the cash they generate is enough to cover all your expenses. And that, my friends, that is the definition of financial freedom.
Okay, on to our final pillar. Pillar 3, activate your financial genius. So at this point, you get the rat race, you know what an asset is, but how do you actually do it? This last part is all about developing the mindset and the skills to go out there and build that asset column. It's about waking up what Kiyosaki calls your financial genius.
And listen, this is not about being book smart. It's about being creative, about seeing opportunities that other people just walk right past. Kiyosaki tells this story about finding a rundown property. It was worth about 75 grand, but he managed to get it under contract for just 20,000. He borrowed a tiny down payment, and get this, before the deal even officially closed, he ran an ad and sold it for 60 grand. He made $40,000 in pure profit in about 5 hours. He literally created money out of thin air with a smart idea and the guts to act on it.
Here's another huge piece of this financial genius idea. You have to work to learn, not just work for money. He tells the story about a journalist he met. She was a fantastic writer, just brilliant, but she couldn't sell a single book. So he suggested she take a sales course. Well, she was totally insulted. She was a master of literature. Sales was beneath her. But don't you see? That's the whole point. She was just one skill away from massive success. So often, the most valuable skills for making money aren't your main profession. They're things like sales, marketing, and just being able to communicate well. But look, just knowing all this stuff isn't enough, right? Rich Dad said there are 4 big psychological hurdles that stop almost everyone from actually getting wealthy. And they are fear, cynicism, laziness, and just plain old bad habits.
Let's talk about fear. Everybody is afraid of losing money. Who isn't? The difference is all in how you handle that fear. Rich people aren't fearless. They just know that losing is sometimes part of the process of winning. But most people, they're so terrified of losing that they end up playing not to lose. They build these super safe portfolios that never really go anywhere. If you want to win, you have to actually play to win.
Okay, this next one sounds a little controversial, I know. But Kiyosaki says the cure for laziness is actually a little bit of greed. Now hold on. He doesn't mean the nasty, destructive kind of greed. He's talking about that simple, powerful desire for a better life. That little bit of, I want more. Because that's the feeling that pushes you to learn new things, to solve tough problems, and to go out and build something better for yourself and the people you love.
And that brings us to the final, and maybe the most powerful takeaway of all. It's this simple shift in language. See, when you say, I can't afford it, your brain just shuts down. It's an escape. It lets you off the hook. But when you ask yourself, how can I afford it? Everything changes. That question opens up your mind. It forces you to think, to get creative, to find solutions. That single question is the engine that drives your financial genius. And it leaves you with a pretty big thought, doesn't it? What amazing problems could you solve if you just started asking the right question?